following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
This is Mick Shots.
Streaming live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Now, here are Bill Jones, Everson Walls, and Mickey Spagnola.
And it is time for another edition of Mick Shots, and we are starting a new week because it's Wednesday.
That's right.
It is Giants Week, and there is so much more than just the Giants.
I was going to say, anybody talking about the Giants?
Well, I can tell you this much. In New York, they are not talking about the Giants because, as you know, I like to go behind enemy lines and hear what they're saying about the other team. On my drive-in, I tried to listen to, and I put quotation marks around tried to listen to New York Sports Talk Radio, and as you can imagine...
Wait, let me guess. They aren't happy with the Yankees.
And a couple of former Rangers that play for the Yankees did not play very well for the Yankees. But what we are here to talk about are your Dallas Cowboys, and of course there was breaking news last night, and we'll fill you in on what we know about the breaking news from last night.
Yeah, I'm sure it might have caught most people off guard, kind of not knowing what's probably was going on behind the scenes. But as Mike McCarthy pointed out today in his press conference, you know, they had a pretty extensive personnel meeting after the game. Mm-hmm. And my understanding, he kind of goes through every guy that played in the game with the owner and the COO and whoever else has probably got Jones on their name.
Including me?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But because you're not upstairs.
But the coach did meet with me yesterday evening. We taped the coach's show, and I will just let you know this much.
He tipped you off.
No, he did not tip me. He tipped me off that there was something important happening.
Oh.
And so he was in a hurry to get that coach's show taped.
In
fact, he got a phone call in the middle of taping the coach's show about 6 o'clock last night. But
so
go ahead.
This is not going to make the coach's show is what you're saying.
It will be in other parts of the coach's
right?
show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I'm sure it's been hashed already, and you know it's our chance to talk about it. The thing I took from Mike McCarthy was he said he was talking about the big picture and multiple factors on why they made the decision to release Jaylon Smith 4 games into the season, and this is the way I look at it. Number one, and this hasn't been pointed out, you know, every company points out that they were worried about his $9.2 million base salary next year, all right? But to do this move, you know, they've got to cover his salary cap hit for this year, right? And to show you the dissatisfaction they had with him, it's going to cost them $6.8 million next year in dead money. So you never get away from the guarantees that have already been paid, right? So 6.8 he's going to cost.
He's going to count against the cap next year.
Next year.
$6.8 million.
You know how when Travis Frederick retired and then there was dead money for this year? Well, next year, dead money for releasing Jaylon Smith is going to be $6.8 million.
And had they waited until now, you do not want to wait until the 5th day of next year because the contract was guaranteed next year on the 5th day of the new league year. But if you waited and made him a June 1st cut, then you could spread that cap hit over 2 years next year.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously,
so that's the significance of doing it now from a salary cap standpoint.
And doing it now because the contract next year, $9.2 million, was guaranteed against injury.
Right.
So what happens if he, I don't know, has some sort of injury that he's out for the rest of this year? Well, if it's something that he has to rehab sort of the way he did this past offseason with the wrist surgery, right? And so he wasn't healthy at the 5th day of the league year this year. So that guaranteed his contract, okay? They couldn't cut him. Everybody goes, why now? Why didn't they do it before? And at that point, they had still not decided on Van Der Esch's, if they were going to pick up his 5th-year option. Mm-hmm. They still hadn't drafted Micah Parsons nor Jabril Cox, right? So from a linebacker standpoint.
And they basically hadn't assigned Keanu Neal yet either.
And right.
Yeah.
So their hands were tied, right? So to me, they were dissatisfied with his play. Let's just get right to that.
Right.
You know, we can come up with all this other stuff, but if the guy's playing well, then you're not doing any of this.
And they gave him a chance over the first 4 weeks of the season to show that
what
he
could do
better into this defense or whatever.
And he did not.
It.
He did not. If you just watched the game against Carolina, they gave him every chance because they opened in a 3-4 defense with Jaylon and Leighton in the middle. And that's where he belongs.
And that was the second series of the game. That was the first series of the game. Jaylon was not on the field. He didn't start.
They were in nickel.
That's right. Second series of the game, they came out in a 3-4. Micah Parsons was playing left outside linebacker. I think maybe it was Basham on the other side. Right. And the inside linebackers were Jaylon and Leighton.
Exactly.
And the first play, Chuba Hubbard went for 14 yards. And then one play later, he went for 12 yards. And then they were in it one more play, and then they discarded the 3-4 the rest of the day. And whenever Jaylon was on the field the rest of the day, it was alongside he was alternating with Leighton alongside Micah Parsons.
Right.
At the traditional linebacker spot.
And I went back and looked at almost every one of his 28 snaps, and he was a non-entity. Mm-hmm. I saw him make one tackle. So that had that was the overriding part of the multiple factors. Now, the other factor is my understanding, they went to him and tried to restructure his contract for next year. And I don't know if that meant lowering the base salary. I don't know if that meant, okay, we're going to take this guarantee away or the injury guarantee away. But when they come to you and ask you to do that and you say no, well, they're sitting here going, okay, now we got to be careful because what if he gets some sort of injury and he needs a surgery and now the contract's guaranteed, right? So they didn't want to risk that chance either. My other point is just look at the roster. Mm-hmm. Now, they knew Keanu Neal was coming back this week. Brandon and I coming back off of COVID. So that would have given them that added to the roster that they would, if Jaylon was on it, they would have been right at 53. But with Jaylon gone, they're at 52. But look at the guys that are about ready to come back off of injured reserve. And I counted between La'el Collins' suspension and then the guys on IR. There's like 6 guys that they would like to get back on this roster. So they were going to have to start cutting guys, right? Mm-hmm. Now, do you want to get rid of young guys that you feel like they've got a future and risk them getting picked up because you're going to waive them and try to put them on the practice squad? Or are you looking at somebody that, as McCarthy pointed out, he didn't say he didn't fit into this defensive system, but he said we have a defensive system that we're going forward with. To me, that meant he didn't fit into what they were doing. And so if somebody's going to be expendable, well, there you go, right? And sometimes I think guys have to – now, I don't know what's going to happen to him. I don't know if somebody's going to sign him. He doesn't have to go through waivers. But if you don't feel like this guy's got a future with you, well, you're not going to keep him and say cutting somebody that you would like to go forward with, but he might not be there yet. It sounds like Jabril Cox is not quite there yet, but he's playing special teams. You don't want to cut him. So,
or Luke Gifford.
Or Gifford.
Right.
Yeah. So you got to move forward, and you can't keep looking backwards. So to me, if you look at where your situation is and they ask you to restructure is probably a pretty good idea, because if you're not, then this might be, the result of saying no.
And even from the standpoint of, just look at snaps this week against the Giants with Neal coming back. And you look at the game against Carolina, and when you're grading the film from that game, and you've got Leighton Vander Esch grading out much better than Jaylon Smith, you would like to have Leighton. How many snaps did Leighton get in that game?
Leighton
30-something, right?
Leighton ended up with 40.
40 snaps.
And Jaylon had 28.
Okay, those 28 snaps. Micah played 68 snaps.
Yep.
Okay. If Leighton, and this is even factoring in Keanu Neal coming back.
And by the way, 68 was one short of 100%.
Right. All right. And so if you decide that Leighton deserves the playing time over Jaylon, okay, so what is Jaylon doing? Is he inactive this week?
He's the fourth linebacker, right?
And he doesn't play special teams.
And he doesn't play special teams. So, and you got Jabril Cox, who ends up playing 19 special team snaps, 66%.
So that, in essence, is the timing of it. And from a very practical standpoint, he doesn't have a role this week on this roster.
Right. And again, $7.2 million base salary. Now you got to cover that, right? Mm-hmm. But if somebody picks him up and signs him for, say, $2 million, then you can take that off the 7.2 that's been guaranteed already. So it sounded like reports where they tried to trade him. I don't know.
And you could see this coming throughout the offseason because of the abundance of linebackers they had. The other part of this was the first game that Parsons has played the full. He's gotten the full play. Snaps. Yeah, he's been around 38, 40 snaps in every game so far. This is the first time he's had the full plate of 68 snaps in a game.
Yeah, and they tried to give, because there were some snaps that Parsons got. They came at defensive end,
right?
So they gave him a chance to be out there,
right?
And it didn't work out so well. And there were some alignments I saw in the second half where when they had Parsons at a defensive end, Leighton was the only true linebacker on the field, and then they were playing Curse kind of as a hybrid type linebacker / safety guy in the slot.
It would be interesting to know if how much they tried or at least inquired with other possible trading suitors throughout the summer and leading up to the start of the season. Because I was looking at it going, and I thought all along, he's from Indianapolis or Indiana, and the Colts middle linebacker signed elsewhere, and they had a need, and then you've got Eberflus there.
Eberflus knew
him. Familiar with him. I thought that would be a good trading partner.
I remember you bringing that up.
And so I was looking, because you could just see that there was more inventory than playing time on this roster at the linebacker position, barring injuries and so forth. And so now we've gotten basically a quarter of the way into the season, and it has sorted itself out, fortunately. And knock on wood, they're fine health-wise at that position. But even if they do suffer an injury at that position, they feel good about the depth, obviously, that they've got there.
And and the other guy, and I know they like him for special teams purposes, but the other guy that's on injured reserve, Francis Bernard, they like him. Mm-hmm. Remember, they kept him on the 53 last year.
Right.
They did give him some snaps other than special teams. So, yeah, it's about going forward. And, when the head coach says, we got to look at the big picture, well, that kind of says it without saying it, right?
Right.
He said all the nice things about him that you could, and then it comes down to, can you play? Can you produce? And it wasn't happening. So he's expendable.
Well, and by the way, did not mention off the top that there is a vacant seat here. Everson told us at the end of the show yesterday that he was traveling today and would not be able to make it, but he'll be back on Thursday and Friday. And don't you know, he's just chomping at the bit to be able to talk about this, because we know that because he was texting as soon as it happened last night.
Yeah, how did he know first? I got a what the heck text or whatever that thing is. WTH. But yeah, he'll be joining us remotely. So now they went out there and practiced today. So, but one of the questions that kept coming up was, how's this going to affect the locker room?
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was about to say. Right now, as we begin this show, Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch were talking to the media.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that'll be we need to listen to right afterwards. And I'm sure everybody will say the right thing. So look, we haven't been in the locker room since 2019. I don't know what happened last year. Don't know what's happening this year. But if I look back to 2019, I just didn't think he was like a locker room guy that everybody gravitated to. And I'm not sure he gravitated to anybody else. And I've said that before. And I said this year I saw a change in him in training camp. He seemed more engaged with his teammates. He was running around, patting guys on the back, but that wasn't him those other years. So I don't know that it affects the locker room. And somebody tried to suggest the Cowboys were sending a message. No, they weren't sending a message. Like, you guys better start playing well because otherwise we're going to cut you. This was not a Jimmy Johnson move, right? No. And you don't do that when you're going to get $6.8 million stuffed in your cap next year.
In fact, I look at it as they gave him every chance to, by keeping him on the roster the first quarter of this season, gave him every chance to show that
that he belonged, right?
Exactly, and the story's a great one as far as the way he came back from his devastating injury his senior year or last year at Notre Dame and rehabbed and so forth. But at a certain point, if you're not getting better,
it's like the roller coaster was going uphill and then it hit the top, right? And then what happens? So you got to be able to stay up there.
Right.
And I'm not sure he did.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line.
Okay, I've got some questions about this defense going forward. And along the lines of that little 3-4 look that we saw the other day and maybe what Dan Quinn's ideas are going forward here as the Cowboys take on the Giants this week when Mick Shots continues in just a moment.
Honey, big news.
Gary, are you okay?
Oh, I'm not Gary anymore. I'm Jackie Flash.
What?
See, I want the latest smartphone, but the best deals are only for new customers. So to get a new customer deal, I changed my name to Jackie Flash.
Okay, but the best smartphone deals at AT&T are for everyone, new and existing customers.
That's huge. Then guess who's getting a deal?
Is it Jackie Flash?
Jackie Flash.
It's not complicated. At AT&T, our best smartphone deals are for everyone. Restrictions apply. Visit att.com for details.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Hey, Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh-tasting, ready-to-serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
It's game day. You know what that means. First, kebab prep. Steak, pepper, onion, steak, pepper, onion. Next, a counterclockwise lap around the room. Now the lucky grease-stained jersey goes on. And lastly, the dance. You know the one. This is a game day ritual no matter where you are. Whether you're traveling to the game or watching from your favorite vacation spot, book a place to stay on Hotels.com and keep the tradition alive and well. Hotels.com, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Back to Mick Shots.
Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders making the team is back for another exciting season. Don't miss new episodes every Friday at 9, 8 Central, only on CMT.
All right, we continue on Mick Shots, and the other little bit of news that broke this morning around the National Football League, that there was some speculation that the Cowboys perhaps could be on the radar of this certain player who is about to be released by the New England Patriots, Stephon Gilmore. Well, as it turns out, it didn't even get to 3 o'clock this afternoon, and Stephon Gilmore is now instead headed to the Carolina Panthers for a 2023 sixth-round draft pick.
Do other teams need any players other than the Cowboys? Every time somebody comes available, well, the Cowboys got to be interested in them.
Well, what was being talked about locally on sports talk radio is the fact that, okay, we need to do something about that other cornerback spot opposite Trayvon Diggs. And, okay, we got Anthony Brown, but, Gilmore sure would look good over there. Have we forgotten that Kelvin Joseph is coming back at some point?
Yeah, and
they used a second-round draft pick on him,
right? So, and how much is he going to cost? Like going forward, are you going to rent him for? It's nearly with his roster bonus, and I'm sure that has tied to games played. He wouldn't be available until Week 7.
He's on PUP.
He's on PUP.
Yep.
And he would cost $6 million. So that's half your cap right there that you supposedly have available. And then, are you going to re-sign him next year? Now, for a 6, you can throw a 6th away, I guess, for 3/4 of a season if you want. Mm-hmm. And that might be what Carolina's doing because they've had so many injuries.
They've lost J.C. Horn, and of course they signed or they traded for C.J. Henderson last week.
Yeah.
So and C.J. Henderson, being a second-year player in the league, they've got him under control for a couple of years at least.
Now everybody's saying Gilmore's healthy because he got put on PUP. It was supposedly a quad, I believe it was, but he was unhappy with his contract.
Right.
So. If $5 million or $6 million a year weren't enough, he's going to want double-digit figures. And
sure,
and you would like to use some of your salary cap if available next year. You would like to at least entertain the possibility of re-signing Leighton Vander Esch. You might want to re-sign Michael Gallup. I don't know if it's affordable. And then Randy Gregory's up too, by the way. Mm-hmm. So this money that they freed up.
Not to mention the free agents that they signed this year on one-year deals like Keanu Neal and Jaron Kearse and DeMonte Casey, who are all playing pretty well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to think ahead. Big picture. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not all about today. You got to plan ahead. So you can't keep spending money at the same position or draft capital at the same position all the time. Sometimes you got to have a 5th-round pick start, a 6th-round pick start. I think Anthony Brown was a 6th-round pick. Sometimes you got to have a Terrence Steele step up as a rookie free agent and the next year look like, okay, I got to save some money. I don't. And by the way, Ty Nsekhe's back out on the practice field. We'll get into a practice report.
And by the way, with a month left before the trade deadline, you don't know where your needs are going to be leading up for the next month.
Yeah, because something else that you might need more importantly might show up.
Right. Your folks at Pro Football Focus was tweeting, where they were tweeting about Stephon Gilmore signing with Carolina, and it just caught my eye. The Carolina Panthers have the second best defense in the NFL.
I saw your tweet.
According to EPA per play.
How mighty you can fall right from the first best to the second best.
That's where it's so early in the year. I just laugh at it because, they got the best offense in the league. They got the second best defense in the league, whatever it is. And it doesn't take into account strength of schedule.
Right.
And as we talked about leading up to that Carolina game, they had played whom? They had played the Jets and the Saints with Jameis Winston and
the
Texans. That's right.
With Davis Mills. I was going to say Miles Davis. No, I think he's a singer, right?
And so So the Cowboys put 36 up on Carolina in 3 quarters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if that's the second best defense in the league, then the Cowboys are going places this year.
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, you got to look inside the numbers sometimes.
All right, you want to go with a practice report?
Yeah.
In fact, I just saw Zeke talk to the media, and
he say he was resting.
He had a knee discomfort.
Discomfort.
But he's going to be okay.
Sounds like a veteran day to me.
Okay.
And he did not, Mike said that there would be some guys limited, but he never put on a uniform. And so, he was out there kind of standing around watching. I thought the other guys that would catch your eye. Amari Cooper, who had the hamstring in the game, he was out there. He might have been limited. They might have limited his snaps, but while special teams was going on, he was doing the resistant cord work. Along with the guy you mentioned, Joseph, Kelvin Joseph, who was out with, was it a knee? I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
It was, wasn't it? He was doing some resistance work. Trayvon Diggs, your NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
That's right.
From the month to the week. He's working on his second month right now. Remember, they said a little back tightness. I don't know if he was doing everything, but he was at least out there, and it looked like he was prepared to practice at least at a limited basis. Randy Gregory, last week it was a little bit of a knee, but he was out there. Anai and Neal were practicing along with Carlos Watkins. So that's a good sign for the defensive front. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that defensive front. You mentioned the 3-4 that they played at times in the first half against Carolina. But if you get Watkins back and Gregory's good to go, you've got your full complement of linebackers that actually can play linebacker. Basham looks like...
What do you mean by that? Linebackers that can actually play linebacker.
I should have rephrased that. Parsons playing linebacker because he can play linebacker instead of defense. That's not what it meant. No, that's not what I was trying to do. I'm not that mean. And so, they're starting to get these guys back. And then, look, at some point, talking about the roster, right, La'el Collins is going to come back. Now, they're 52 right now.
They're 3 games in. He's got 2 games left to go?
I think he's back after the
bye. So he misses the Giants and the Patriots. He's 60% of the way through his 5-game suspension.
Which could have been 2.
Yeah.
I'm just shaking my head for people that aren't watching. So he's going to take up a roster spot. At some point, you want DeMarcus Lawrence back on the roster, right? And so we're probably looking at much of this after the bye. You probably want, when he's healthy, Kelvin Joseph back on the roster. You want Michael Gallup back on the roster. Sean McKeon, you'd like him back. McEwen, I'm sorry. Neville Gallimore, when he's ready. If Francis Bernard, Josh Ball. So they got guys that they would like to get back on the 53. Well, you're not going to have room for all these guys. Now, you're not going to sit there and go, well, we'll probably get some injuries and we can rotate guys out, but you can't plan on that. Well, and that doesn't even bring up...
It's a physical game, Mickey.
Tristan Hill.
My hamstring.
Yeah,
It hurts.
Yes, absolutely. Go sit for 3 weeks, right?
That's what I like about this. And I think going forward, it needs to stay this way, where you can use this injured reserve in this capacity, kind of like baseball with the injured list in baseball, where it used to be 15-day, and now it's 10-day, where it just makes more practical sense as far as your roster is concerned. You're spending so much money, on all these players. And in the past, you had, if a guy got hurt and he's out for projected for a month, well, you got no spot for him, and so he's out for the season instead.
Right.
And what protects against stashing players is the fact there is a salary cap.
Exactly.
in my opinion.
Because I was going to say that's
Right.
why we were in the situation with the IR previously, because there was too many, oh, yeah, I got a hamstring, right? And then 4 weeks later, you would bring the guy back. You didn't want to lose him. And
that made a lot of sense back in the pre-salary cap era.
But there was phony injuries. That's why it went away.
That's right.
So
that's right.
They kind of ruined it.
That was nearly 30 years ago now.
That's right. And I've told you the story about the Cowboy quarterback in a preseason game, right?
Uh-huh.
They purposely called a quarterback bootleg, and they wanted him to keep the ball and run towards the Cowboys sideline. Because he wasn't going to make the team, but they wanted to get him on IR. Mm-hmm. And they told him, and then when you run towards our sideline, our camera's right there, and just before you get there, grab your hamstring. And he forgot to grab his hamstring. And I'm going, if he ain't smart enough to do that,
then you don't
I don't want him out there calling plays.
So they wound up having to cut him.
So, yes, I believe that's what happened to him. But that's what was going on back then. And then the NFL said, okay, these guys you got on IR, we're bringing an independent doctor there to check them out to make sure they really do have an injury. And they really aren't practicing, by the way. And so that's how we got to the, for the year IR.
The other thing about it, I'll get to that in just a second. Since I teased the 3-4, I love the fact that this roster has enough hybrid players on it where they can run a 3-4 or a 4-3 week to week, basically, or series to series, basically. Yeah.
I thought, though, they played better the second half without it.
Right. But there are
more pressure.
Right. And and I thought the adjustment made at halftime. I mean, it was as if Dan Quinn told the Carolina Panthers, okay, you're going to treat our offense that way and put 6 or 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, and we don't know who's coming and who's dropping.
Here we go.
All right, we're going to do the same to you.
Yeah.
And Darnold could not handle that. And that was a huge reason why that game tilted in the third quarter.
I always worried about a 3-4 against the run.
Yeah, as evidenced the other day.
Yeah, and
as evidence, they were kind of doing it last year, especially with Everson Griffin, who had never played without his hand on the ground, and they were trying to stand him up.
Nor DeMarcus Lawrence.
And Lawrence, too. And Lawrence is a 4-3 defensive end. Okay?
Yes.
And but there aren't very many other players on this roster who you would say, okay, he is quote unquote one or the other. You know?
No, absolutely.
But the guys that they acquired, Brent Urban has been in a 3-4 throughout his career. Carlos Watkins, I'm talking the defensive linemen, guys with long arms, who can play that 5 technique, whatever. Parsons can play either inside backer or outside, obviously, or defensive end. Van Der Esch has that same ability where he could play an outside linebacker, kind of in that Clay Matthews mold, whatever. I just think from a strategic standpoint, it just makes a world of difference because the opposition doesn't know how to you can tailor your game plan to fit whatever the other team does if you've got hybrid players.
Right.
Like that,
because what they did is they used a lot of early Justin Hamilton and Bohanna as the nose tackle.
Right. And so you got to have, as Randy White used to say, that big bazooka in the middle too, And he's always called for, we got to get a big bazooka in the middle of that defense,
Although all I know is every time back in the 90s when the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, when they went up against a team with a 3-4, they ran right over
them.
They gashed them because those outside linebackers couldn't hold up against the run. So you just send Nate Newton pulling against a 240-pound linebacker.
And by the way, it wasn't a 3-4, but when we're talking about Carolina's defense being the second-best defense in the league, well, that defense could not handle Zeke Elliott and a running back running up between the tackles like Zeke can run, and an overpowering offensive line, which the Cowboys are featuring right now.
Yeah, and they will continue to do that.
They had 240-pound defensive ends out there, And so
they gave up 245 yards rushing.
There you go.
Pound for pound, isn't it?
That's right.
Yard for pound, I guess I should call it.
Different deal this week against the Giants. The Giants' defense, they aren't big bazookas, but their defensive line, they've invested heavily in that defensive line, led by Leonard Williams up front. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. And by the way, when we come back on Mick Shots, there's a Giants player who has won an award, much like what Trayvon Diggs won for the Cowboys. When Mick Shots continues.
At Smoothie King, we are blending goodness to fuel your greatness. Every blend is crafted to help you achieve your health and fitness goals. Smoothie King uses only whole fruits and organic veggies. You'll never find sugary syrups or artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. And unlike some other smoothie places, there are 0 grams of added sugar in many of our blends. Smoothie King is proud to be the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys. Place your order in the app or online for pickup or delivery. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Hey, Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh-tasting, ready-to-serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with United Ag and Turf. Before you can park yourself in front of the game, park yourself in a John Deere and power through your chores. Our Land Run package is a 1025R, 25 horsepower tractor with a loader, rotary cutter, and a box blade for $229 a month. And the price you see is the price you'll pay, no surprises. So don't miss another kickoff.
Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com. Offer ends February 1st, 2021. Restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
Now let's get to work.
Back to Mick Shots.
Cowboys Nation can join the fight against cancer with 2021 Crucial Catch gear. Every dollar of NFL royalties from this collection will be donated to the American Cancer Society. Visit your local Dallas Cowboys pro shop or log on to shop.dallascowboys.com. A fanatics experience. I always want to say fantastic experience.
Well, it's a fantastic fanatics experience.
A fanatics experience.
Is that spelled F-A-N, or is it one of those funky spellings of fanatics?
It's F-A-N.
Okay. Daniel Jones, Giants quarterback, named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week after his performance last week, a Giants victory in overtime over the New Orleans Saints. And, of course, as we mentioned earlier, Trayvon Diggs, the NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
I wonder how many times they've gone up against each other. The Offensive Player of the Week against the team with the Defensive Player of the Week.
That's something for someone else to research. But Daniel Jones is playing well.
Yes.
And he had 402 yards passing in that game. Now, I would make the case that, Zeke had 143. But
But it was against the number one defense.
That's right. It's the number one defense in the league.
Number one rushing defense.
Number one rushing defense, number one passing defense, number one overall defense.
As a matter of fact, he came up 2 yards short of the total yards Carolina had given up in 3 games.
That's right.
That's all they'd given up was 145.
Yeah.
And nobody had rushed for more than 25 yards against him. Oops.
Wow.
Yeah. So now they're number 2 defense, huh?
But I would say, yes, they are. That was according to your friends at PFF.
Carolina, number 3.
Oh, they're going down the charts.
Number 3.
I think they got the Eagles this week.
10th again. They went from first against the run to 10th, and they're second against the pass because the Cowboys didn't need to throw the ball.
Yeah. But I wouldn't sleep on these New York Giants.
No, I would not. I absolutely would not. And obviously the Cowboys are a different team than when Jason Garrett left, right? The guys it's turned over quite a bit between 20 and 21. But he does know some of these guys, and he knows them
All right, let me ask you
intimately.
All right. Would they consider – they lost their middle linebacker, Blake Martinez, last week.
Yes, they did.
Would
Pick
they,
up Jaylon just for pick his brain?
What do you think? Jason always liked him. I mean, or at least he said he always liked him. And in how that guy at the combine, he just lit up the room when he walked into the room, his charisma and so forth. And of course, they had Rod Smith, his brother, on here.
Right.
And so he loves the family. Do you think Jason has enough pull with the Giants to say, hey?
That probably depends on how much he's willing to play for.
You know, that does have a little something to do with the timing of the release. You know, it's smart on the Cowboys' part. If you're going to release a player, don't do it Monday morning, whatever, or where he hits by 3 o'clock Monday. He is, if you think he might be picked up by another team, wait until the waiver, at least the transaction time at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, where a team can't pick him up necessarily to
and basically have one less day to pick his brain.
Right.
And then the other thing is, and then teams that have a full roster, they got to cut somebody, and now you're 1 day into preparing for the next game, and that guy's not going to get there till Thursday or Friday. Probably can get there Thursday, I guess. But yeah, that's a consideration. But yeah, you know what? I thought it was a good thing that the Giants won that game. I don't want anybody coming in here 0-4 because at some point they're going to win one, right? No matter how bad you may be playing. And they're not playing bad, right? 2 of the losses were overtime field goals.
They could easily be 3-1.
Yeah.
Okay, take that back. They could easily be 2-2.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to Washington because Dexter Lawrence jumped off sides on what would have been the game-winning field goal attempt, which was missed.
Right.
And they gave him a second chance, and they made it and lost 30-29. So if he doesn't jump off sides, they win that game.
Yeah. And
having said that, had they won that game, they might not have won this week's game. You know, it's one of those things where it became desperation time for them going to New Orleans this past week, and everyone gets a little more focused. And then the other game was against Atlanta. They had a lead against Atlanta, and they lost on a game-ending field goal in that game too, 17-14.
Yeah. So it's not like, they're not really good. You know, watch out.
Now, what have we said, though? They were playing Atlanta, and they were playing, and New Orleans does not look to be the same New Orleans team that beat Green Bay in the opener 38-3. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, how did that happen? That's amazing.
Yeah.
That tells you what a good coach Sean Payton is. If he could pull that off with Jameis Winston, who you don't know up and down, right? That's kind of him. What you're going to get, and so a lot of, and we've said this all along. Just look who's playing quarterback for these teams.
And you know, there's a lot of similarities between the Giants and the Panthers. When you look at Daniel Jones can run the ball like Darnold ran the ball,
right?
Okay, he's not turning the ball over. His only interception was, and Darnold was not throwing interceptions until he went up against Diggs this past week. Daniel Jones' only interception was on a Hail Mary. Okay, and now he only has 4 touchdown passes, but they're playing it close to the vest, conservatively, and staying in games, and so that is their recipe coming in here on Sunday afternoon.
And his quarterback rating is 98.3, so he's one spot behind Justin Herbert, who everybody thinks is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right?
Top 15 in the league as far as his passer rating goes?
I would have to – well, I can tell you. Hang on. Where's he at? Jones. He's 15th.
There you go. So it's top 15. Yeah, I did see something. There 2 quarterbacks in the league have 5 straight games with passer ratings of 90.0 or higher. You follow me on that?
Yes.
5 straight games with passer ratings of 90.0 or higher. 2 quarterbacks in the league have done that. So we're taking into account 4 games this year plus the last game last year. Who would those 2 quarterbacks be?
Well, it can't be Dak since he didn't play the game last year.
Well, the last game he played, okay,
he would have. So he has to be one of them.
He's not one of them.
He's
because
not.
Against one of the games this year, his passer rating was only 87. I guess against the Chargers, maybe.
Oh, maybe, yeah, because they didn't really throw the ball that much. Well, get this. So
I'll answer the question for you. Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray are the only quarterbacks in the league that have 5 straight games with passer ratings of 90.0 or more.
So 14th, so he's 15th. 14th is Justin Herbert. 13th, Tom Brady. 12th, Aaron Rodgers.
Wow, he's in some pretty good company.
How about that? Better not sleep on Daniel Jones. Oh, Dak's
like 4th?
4th.
Okay.
3rd in touchdowns.
Okay, 1, 2. Since we're going down this road, 1, 2, and 3.
1 is Russell Wilson. 2, Mahomes, and 3, Matthew Stafford.
Where's Murray?
Murray is 5th.
There you go. So there you got your top 5. Russell Wilson has not thrown a pick, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
And Murray's thrown 4.
That shows that he's done a lot of other stuff.
So why is his so high? Well, he's got a
high percentage,
76% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, so 1 less than Dak. And he's at
yards per attempt. Probably
he's at
high.
115, and Dak's at 116.9.
Okay.
And his yards per attempt, and here's the one. He's at 9.5.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with Daniel Jones. His yards per attempt is over 8. It's 8.2. So, all right, we'll get more into the Giants as the week goes on, and Everson will be with us tomorrow, and we are out of time
already.
This edition of Mix Shots. We will chat at you again tomorrow at 1:30.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!